With so many things happening in our world today, like COVID-19, tomorrow's election, the holidays that are coming up, well, I got to tell you, emotions may be running very, very high for a lot of you. In today's To Your Well-Being, we're talking about dealing with emotions and how to have healthy conversations during challenging times. Clinical psychologist Dr. David Gutterman is the clinical director of LeBauer Behavioral Medicine. Tomorrow, of course, Election Day. Lots of people have said this is one of the most stressful days out of the year for them. So how do we handle conversations about the results with someone who obviously expresses different opinions than we do?
Well, certainly this is one of the most divisive elections we've seen in our lifetime, and emotions are running extremely high, as you said, with the election and COVID and so many different things. I think one of the most important tips I would suggest is that as the results roll in, I would refrain from going public right away with your opinions and social media and all that. It's one of the first things that people turn to share what's going on with them. But I think that it's important to give yourself a 24-hour waiting, whether you are delighting in the results or whether you have despair because of the results. I think it's important not to instill to either gloat or despair publicly, because it's going to incite a lot of very intense feelings. And so give yourself a waiting period.
All right, usually you say, hey, don't look at what people are posting, but you're saying you don't even post yourself and it kind of takes you out of the fray.
Absolutely, I think it's just too tempting. I think once you've entered into that realm and start posting your own thoughts or feelings, or just reading others, you're going to be compelled to want to respond. And though some of it might be relatively benign and not upsetting, I think for a lot of people they're going to be very excited and want to post something or be very upset. And it really is not toward any positive end. This is a time to step back, reflect a little bit on really what this all means and what it's about to you, and hopefully to begin to repair some of the rhetoric that has been going back and forth that has been so divisive.
All right, let's move on from the election. We've all been dealing with this COVID-19 thing for several months now, more months than we thought we would. People are fatigued. They want their life to go back to normal. Some are feeling really depressed and isolated. What are some recommendations to help manage that, especially with the holidays coming up and people saying, well, we're not going to get together?
Well, that's a great point, because when you and I had spoken in the past, and as we were entering into summer, people were just getting a handle on the fact that this was going to be going on for the entire summer, but with the hope and expectation maybe that by fall, or especially by winter, it will be turning around. But we know that that's just not the case now, and people are really responding and having such distress over the fact that we're in this for the long haul. And in spite of what some politicians are telling us, and I implore everyone to please be listening to the reliable medical sources, what we know is that we are in this for a while, and it's likely through this winter. And so one of the things I suggest is not to be in denial about this, but we have to face this head on, take all the precautions we've talked about, and you begin to plan for things rather than despair about the holidays and feeling surprised when they come upon us and we don't have a plan. Start planning now. I mean, Thanksgiving's is just a few weeks away, and then of course followed by Christmas and New Year's. Start making your plans now for how you're going to do it safely and how you're going to maintain as much safe contact with family and friends as you possibly can, utilizing all the strategies you've been using all summer.
All right, so, we keep hearing the experts say wear the mask, social distancing, limiting your social gatherings is vital as we continue through COVID-19 and with the numbers increasing. How should you respond to people who don't support this while avoiding a confrontation?
Yeah, that's a tough one, because unfortunately, as we've talked about before, masks and some of these precautions have become politicized. And once again, I implore everyone to please take to heart the recommendations that are being made. It's very frustrating to go into public wearing your mask, taking all the precautions, and then someone walks in who's not adhering to the same standards. What I suggest is, there are times when you have the ability to get away from that person and not confront. Unfortunately, there have been some very difficult situations, which a lot of us have seen on social media. But I think importantly, if you are in a public place or in a store, you can go to managers and ask them to maybe say something to a patron. But you don't want to get into direct hot confrontations. You can, in fact, however, say to people and let them know that you're adhering to the guidelines. You would appreciate it if they would, as well. And you can do so. Doesn't make it personal and is not necessarily judgmental, but really asking in a way that is respectful of the other person. But don't feel shy about protecting yourself and protecting your family and doing what's necessary.
I know I have felt that I did not want to say something or whatever, and so I just used body language and kind of moved myself away back a little bit if I felt that was something, and I felt like that was non-confrontational. So body language use.
Body language, that's a very powerful and meaningful, right? So if someone is standing, 3 feet from you and you're not comfortable, it's okay without making, a big public display of just, moving another 3 feet. Sometimes people will still make commentary or even judgmental or nasty comment about it. You don't take the bait. It's simply that you need to do what is necessary to stay safe. None of us really want to get into a confrontation. However, unfortunately, there are some people who are always looking for some type of a confrontation, and it's just not helpful. The goal is for you to be safe, for others to be safe. So don't be shy, however, about, again, respectfully standing your ground around those guidelines that you need to adhere to.
All right, some people, their reaction immediately, right? Because they get, they either raise their voice or their hands or something like that. But what are other signs to look for that you may have touched on a stressful or hot button with someone and you kind of didn't mean to?
Well, if you didn't mean to and you've said something that, and someone responds that way exceeds anything you would have expected from the comment you made. That is, their voice, as you say, gets really loud, or they snap back. Well, first of all, keep in mind, everybody's nerves are a little bit on edge these days, so it doesn't take a whole lot to tip over that edge. But if someone responds in a way that far exceeds what you would expect for your comment, that's a pretty clear indication they've heard something different than what you meant to say, especially if you weren't trying to be insightful. So ask them. If someone escalates real quickly, don't just jump in if you're feeling they're biting your head off to jump back at them and be defensive. In fact, step back and just say, obviously I touched nerve. What did you hear me say? It's not what I meant to say, and clarify what the message was. But people are a lot more on edge, and they tend to read into a lot more things these days. So simply asking someone to put on a mask, might be taken very harshly, or something political could be taken very harshly when it's really not meant to be.
Mm-hmm. And it's good to try and diffuse it, like you said, right there at that moment, saying, I didn't mean what you think I said, and let's make sure that you heard what I said, and all that other kind of stuff. Okay.
Absolutely. And I know it sounds a little cumbersome, but it's far better than going down that rabbit hole of arguing about something that was never really intended in the first place.
Mm-hmm. All right, so coming up, Dr. Gutterman and Cone Health's Chief Physician Executive, Dr. Bruce Swords, will be answering your coronavirus questions. What we want to do is make sure that you get your question answered. So this is how you do it. You text your question, 336-379-5775, and we'll be right back.